Alright guys, welcome back to the show. It's Monday. Appreciate you guys watching. We're going to talk about tools today. I've had quite a few people ask me about the tools that I have needed and have used on this build. And so I've accumulated all my power tools that I've used on this job. And we're just going to go through them. I'm going to explain to you what I've used them for and whatnot. So let's get started. So one thing to keep in mind when you're purchasing tools is how much are you going to use that tool. For example, if this house that I built, I have metal, it's a post frame building and I metaled it. So I bought a nibbler. I'm not sure how much or if I'll build another post frame building for a while. So I bought a corded nibbler. They have the same nibbler that is battery operated, but it's twice the cost. So the way I looked at it is I don't know when I'm going to use it again, so I want something that I can plug in. Is it more difficult to have a corded tool? Absolutely. I'll agree with that 100%. And there's no doubt that cordless tools are way better in my opinion if they're powered correctly. However, you take my nibblers for example, if I'm not going to use that all the time, first of all, I don't want to pay double the price for something I'm not going to use all the time. Secondly, those batteries, if they just sit there for long periods of time, they're going to go bad. So it made more sense to me to buy corded tools for the most part. Now, I do have some battery operated tools that I use literally every day, and I'll talk to you about those. Alright, so we'll just start with tools that I use to cut the lumber with. The first one I got here is a 12-inch miter saw. It's a double compound, which means you can cut two angles at the same time. You can get all the way through a 2x6, 2x8 with it. It's a sliding compound saw, and I use that quite a bit. I use it on this job quite often. I think if you're going to do a lot of your own DIY projects, a miter saw is definitely a saw that you would want in your set of tools. It comes in very useful and handy, especially when you're cutting miters and angles. It just helps you make really straight cuts. As far as cutting lumber on this job, I've got two different circular saws here. I got a 20-volt DeWalt. It's a this runs, I think, is it a 6.5? I think it's a 6.5-inch blade. And then we have a worm drive DeWalt saw that's 7 1/4. And this is really nice when you're trying to cut a ton of sheets of plywood at the same time. It helps speed up the process. But if you were going to have one tool, if you're going to build a post frame home or a home in general, like as far as getting it to the point where it's framed in, I would recommend, if you can only get one tool to cut, it would be a circular saw. You can pretty much cut everything you need on the job with a circular saw. Now there are things that'll be more difficult. For example, when I was cutting my posts for my porch, those were 6x6 posts, and I could not get all the way through them with this, so I had to make a series of cuts around it and then finish it off with a handsaw. That's how I chose to do it. It worked great. But if you had to get one tool to cut to build your post frame home, I would suggest getting a circular saw. You can get a regular circular saw, or you can get a worm drive. A worm drive, from my experience, holds a little bit better line. It's a heavier duty circular saw, but this has been very handy, and I've used this on a lot of my remodels. The other circular saw I have is this 6.5. It's got a 6.5-inch blade on it. It's a 20-volt platform from DeWalt, and this is super handy for taking up in the rafters or climbing up, and if you gotta cut off a girt or or something. It's super light and does a really good job. It actually, I use a 4 amp hour battery on it, and you can make quite a few cuts through lumber with it before it dies. Those are the main saws that I've used. I do have a DeWalt portable table saw here that I have used a couple times, but it's not for this job. I really haven't used it up to this point. Now when we get into the inside to all the finishing stuff, I will probably use it quite a bit. So, all right, we're gonna talk about one more saw before we get going that I've used quite a bit, and that is a Sawzall. And I will tell you this, from a remodeling standpoint, in my opinion, this is the #1 saw in my toolbox, especially for remodeling when you have to destruct stuff before you can put something back together. This is a very versatile saw. This is actually one I gave away not too long ago, but it's got a 3/4 inch stroke, which is pretty short, but that makes it really nice when you're trying to cut off the bottom of a stud where you're trying to cut the nails, and you don't want that blade over penetrating and getting into some wiring or something you don't want. This is definitely a tool that I could not do without, especially with all the remodeling and stuff I've done. So another tool that I've used on this build is this portable hand planer, and I've used this for a couple different things, and you could get away with not having this, although having certain tools at certain times makes life a lot easier. Everything I've done with this, I could have done with a circular saw. It would have just taken a little bit more time is all. But I used this when I was notching out my posts for my garage headers. I had to take out about 1/4 inch of my columns so the header would sit in far enough to be even with the outside, because those headers were 1 3/4 inches and the girts are 1.5 inches, so I had to take notch them in 1/4 inch, and I just used this planer and it worked awesome. However, I could have done that with a circular saw, so not a necessity. And all right, this is my corded drill. It is a 1/2 inch, 8.5 amp. But having a good drill that you don't run out of power is nice. I use this to drill all my 1/2 inch holes through my columns and trusses for those through bolts. I mean, I have cordless drills, but going through those columns, those are treated, and you're going through multiple ones. You just go through batteries really, really quick. All right, let's talk about how I've cut this metal. I got the main tool that I used on this whole build is this Makita nibbler, and the model on it is a JN1601. It's 5 amp. This right here, I would say, is a must-have. They make this exact same tool in a battery on a battery platform, but it's double the cost. So for me, I don't build post frames for a living, so I'm not cutting metal all the time. So I decided to just get the one that you plug in, and whenever I need it, I have it. If I get to the point in my career where I'm building post frames all the time, then maybe I'd get a battery operated one. I don't know if that's gonna be my future or not. Sometimes I don't know what I'm gonna do day to day. But anyway, this is a excellent tool to cut your metal with. You get a nice clean cut with this. It's actually got little guides, I don't know if you can see them, that you can line up on your mark so you know where you're cutting, and you can do a really good job with this. Now, all right, let's talk about air nailers. I have 3 nailers here. I have my framing nailer, which is a Bostitch. I've had really good luck with Bostitch framing nailers over the years. I've used this to frame up all these walls in here, and it's worked great. I will tell you this, that I hand pounded all of the pull bar nails for my girts into my columns, and the reason for that is I think they're 4.5 inch ring shank nails, that you have to put in for your girts, and that takes a really big air gun, air nailer, and they're like $1,100. So for me, I felt like taking the time and hand nailing them for just this one building wasn't that big a deal. And in all honesty, it wasn't that bad, and it was kind of fun swinging a hammer. Another nailer that I got is this Fasco metal hanger nailer. So anything that takes 1.5 inch Tico nail, so hangers, hurricane clips, anything like that, this will shoot nails in. And I don't know if you can see it behind me. That hanger right there takes 38 1.5 inch Tico nails. So if you think about whether this is worth it or not, this is right around $300. It's an air one. They do make a battery operated one, but again, for the amount that I use this, the air one's not a problem. So my opinion, this is well worth the money spent. And if you've ever hammered 1.5 inch Tico nail in, anybody that's a framer or has done any of that knows that you're gonna smash your fingers. At some point, you're gonna smash your fingers because holding 1.5 inch nail and then, trying to get it started, I mean, you get good at it, but you're gonna smash your fingers. So this is a good investment in my opinion. This tool right here, it's 20 volt, 18 gauge, narrow head crown stapler. It's made by DeWalt. I use this quite a lot on this job. All my trims I've put up with this. J trim, your bottom trim, even tacked up some wainscot trim with this. I put all this plywood up here in the soffits with it. It's just a very versatile tool, and it's come in very handy, and is way easier than pounding nails or taking the time to screw some of this stuff up. So this is definitely something not necessary, but definitely speeds up the process on a lot of this stuff. So, all right, this tool here is a hammer drill, and as if you can see, it's got a few different settings. You can do 3 different things with it. You can just hammer with it, so you can buy like chisel blades for this. If you're like taking up old tile or whatever, you can just drill with it, or you can hammer and drill, which is basically what you're going to be doing when you're putting anchors in concrete. And that's mainly what I've used this for. You saw me put some brackets on my storm shelter for my pulse laminated columns. You've seen me drill holes in the concrete for when I was doing the bottom plate in my garage. This is definitely a tool that you're going to need if you're going to do especially a house on a slab. You're going to be drilling holes, and if you don't have a really good hammer drill, it makes life a lot more difficult. So used this quite a few times already on this job. I used this when I drilled holes in the side of the storm shelter foundation for my window wells to put bolts in. So this comes in really handy, and it's something that you're probably going to need if you're going to build your own post frame home. All right, as far as drills, guys, I've used these DeWalt 20 volt, these little hammer drills. I got 2 sets of them. These are ones with brush motors, and then these are brushless motors, and I've had great luck with both of them. The reason I have 2 sets is because I needed some batteries, and DeWalt had a deal where it was honestly made more sense to just buy another set with batteries versus just buying batteries. So that's what I did, and it actually is pretty awesome. Like when I'm doing certain stuff, I can have drill bits in these, and I'm not switching tools all the time. But I use these an absolute ton, and I will tell you this, these probably aren't the most powerful of all the ones that are made, but I can tell you that I have put these things to the test. I have dropped them from 30 feet multiple times, and they just keep on working. I would definitely recommend these as far as durability, and they do get the job done, so I have nothing to complain about. So this is my air compressor here. It's an industrial 30-gallon, 155 PSI air compressor. It's a portable one. It's a little bigger. And the reason I chose this is because I needed it to do multiple things. I needed it to be big enough that I could run certain tools in my shop, but also portable where I could take it to a job site if I had to. Now obviously if I keep doing jobs for different people and I need a more portable option, there's a lot of smaller units out there. But that's another thing. Like, each of our situations are unique and specific to us, and that's why I chose this, because this gives me multiple uses versus just having like this one is a small air compressor here. I use this when I'm inside doing trims because I can carry it around, but it doesn't do much other than run my small air nailers. I mean, I can air tires and stuff up with it, but its capacity is very small. It just can't keep up with big tools. But as far as running a trim gun or something, it's great. So you have to get the air compressor that works for you. To me, this tool was invaluable. It made life so much easier, made things so much quicker, and everything is unbelievably level as I put this together. Like my footings, setting these posts, doing the grade on the inside of my house, setting my trims. This made life way easier. Now, if you have somebody to help you, I started out with this tool right here, and this is by Northwest Instrument. It is a transit level, and inside here there are basically some crosshairs, and you look through it like a scope. It's basically a two-man operation. Now I will tell you this, that I took some 5-gallon buckets and rigged them up so they could hold my measuring stick, but it was very difficult and it didn't save me a ton of time. But I've done many remodeling addition jobs with this where I've had to set grade and all that, and I've gotten really good results. It's just not nearly as easy and as simple as a laser level. With that being said, I do enough stuff that was well worth the money. I think this is like $1,600 or $1,700 versus this, which is $300. So if you're just starting out, this is definitely something that you could do, another option. But if you're going to be doing a lot of projects or even something like this, I would say even if you were building your own post frame home and you were going to do most of the stuff yourself, that is well worth the investment. You're going to save enough money through the course of this project that it will pay for itself 10 times over. So definitely worth the investment. This one, you're going to need levels. I basically have 4 levels I use. I have a 6-foot level, 4-foot level. I have this small little magnet level that I keep in my work bag that I wear all the time. And then if you're going to be building a post frame, you are going to want something like this most likely, and this is a plate level. And basically what this does is you can extend this, and this one goes out to 12 feet, a little beyond 12 feet, and locks. And then on each end it's got these little plates. So when you're setting these big tall posts or walls and you're running a regular level along that post or that 2x4, 2x6 or whatever it is that might not be perfectly straight, you might not get a good accurate read. So how this works is this will touch the top part of the post, and then there's another one at the bottom that'll touch the bottom, and that way you're getting a pretty accurate read on your level. These are quite costly. This one is around $350. However, when you're doing really tall walls or columns for a building like this, it's almost a necessity to have one. All right, guys, I appreciate you watching. Hopefully somebody got something out of this. I know this wasn't an in-depth review of these tools, but it was basically, I got several questions on what power tools did I have to build this building, and that's why I went through what I have and what I used. And for the most part, there was just a select few tools that I used every day to build this. So I know that this project that I've done now, the way it stands, I have more than paid for all of the tools that I carry around in my trailer, my skid steer, all the attachments, and then some. So with that being said, if you're willing to sacrifice some of your free time and your family just wants to be out in the country on a piece of property and build their own, stick frame home or post frame home, it can be done. You just have to decide what you're willing to do to get to that point. And it's not easy, but at the end of the day, it is well worth it. If there's any specific questions on these tools, please don't be afraid to send us a question, and I'll try to answer those the best I can. But appreciate you guys watching, and we'll catch you on the next video.